Welcome to ABC 7 Extra. Good evening. I'm Eric Elkin in for Cell Signs. The federal sentencing of the Walmart shooter is now over. The death penalty was taken off the table, so the sentencing of life in prison without the possibility of parole was a formality. In total, 90 consecutive life sentences in the Supermax facility in Florence, Colorado. However, District Attorney Bill Hicks tells me he won't head there. Patrick Crusius won't head there as he awaits custody transfer to the state for the state's case. The prosecution will seek the death penalty in that case. But what we saw and heard for the first time during the federal sentencing was the family members of victims and survivors getting an opportunity to directly address Patrick Crusius. There was a wide range of emotions, from tears and sobbing to anger. I was set to have Brenda Anchondo join me on ABC 7 Extra. She is the mother of one of the victims, Andrea Anchondo. She also lost her daughter-in-law, Jordan Anchondo. They died protecting their infant son at the time, now 4-year-old Paul Anchondo. Brenda has also since lost her husband, Gilbert Anchondo, in February 2021 to a heart attack, but she tells me he died of a broken heart. Appearing on this program after the sentencing, though, wrapped up, became too overwhelming as she continues to grieve. So she instead provided me with this statement, quote, "Listening to all the impact statements was very difficult. Memories that I wanted to leave in the past were relived. Imagining what my son, Andre Pablo, must have felt. Was he afraid? What was going through his mind? I imagine the look on his face that he may have had. I think about Jordan, the look on her face as well, having to act quickly to protect my grandson. Hating him will not bring back my son. I cannot live hating. If I live with hate, then what will I be teaching my grandson? He was left without a mother and father. That alone will be painful for him. Now that he is 4 years old, he understands that he doesn't have his father. He misses his father. He told me he wants to go to heaven to see him. I cannot have this hate and will not have it. My grandson is a very happy, sweet, and funny little boy. He looks and is very much like his father. The teachers say he is bright and sweet little boy. He loves going to school and being with his friends. When he comes home after school, he talks about what he learned. For example, now he knows how to say hello in Chinese. Like my husband Gilbert would say, I do not hate him. I hate the evil inside him. The evil is what I hate. The evil that made him drive to our city and commit an atrocity on innocent people, people that are now left with sorrow and hate. The evil that made my husband die of a broken heart. Federal court rules prohibit cameras or recording devices inside. What we're able to show you are sketches of what it looked like inside and quotes from those witness impact statements. Javier Ramiro Rodriguez was the youngest victim, just 15 years old when he was killed. His father, Francisco Javier Rodriguez, saying, quote, "You branded your family like the coward you are. They are marked for life. When everyone hears your name, all they'll see is the coward that you are. All they're going to see is the killer, the coward." David Johnson was shot and killed while shielding his family from the gunfire. His granddaughter, Caitlin Melendez, now just 13 years old, was accompanied by a service dog when she addressed Patrick Crusius, saying, quote, "You're not a monster, you're the devil. I don't know what kind of parents you have that raise you to be this type of racist person, but usually the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Shame on the parents of this coward of a man-child for not having the brains to disarm him. You deserve to suffer in jail. You are an evil parasite that is nothing without a weapon." And the prosecutor from the U.S. Attorney's Office delivered this final statement ahead of the sentencing on Friday, saying, quote, "A cold, calculated scheme targeting people of Mexican and Hispanic descent. This shooting spree spared no one. It was not a crime of passion. Even with a mental disorder, there was no indication that he lacked the understanding that he didn't know between right and wrong. It was not an attack on Walmart. He didn't go into the Walmart looking for someone he knew. He was trying to eliminate a class of people." And again, while cameras are not allowed in the courtroom, we are able to speak with family members, several of them, and family members of victims after they read their statements. Coming up next, I'll be joined by former El Paso Mayor Dee Margo, who was inside the courtroom each day this past week. But as we head to break, here is some of the reaction from those family members who are still dealing with the pain of that fateful day nearly 4 years later. You're watching ABC 7 Extra.
It felt good. It felt scary. I'm glad I was able to share my piece and say what I needed to say for my own healing process. I hope what I said resonates with him. I don't care if he's sorry. I don't forgive him. I don't think he deserves anyone's forgiveness.
I don't buy it. I don't. I mean, like I said, yesterday I asked him if he was sorry. He shook his head to me, yes. I asked him if he resents what he did, and he said, yes. I didn't see any signs of, if it is a mental illness issue, I would have saw him having tears. I would have heard his lawyers say something like, I'm sorry, and I did not come here to kill Mexicans or anything like that. I didn't get any of that from him today. So, no, I don't buy this mental illness stuff.
Just sit there and be in the same courtroom with the person that killed your family member, it's hard. It's very, very hard. I mean, you sit there and you think, man, if you didn't do what you did, I'd have my child, whole in her record.
Unlock your potential and launch your nursing career with Southwest University. Take the leap and enroll by July 21st to become a skilled nurse in just 2 years. That's right, we fast-track your journey to success with Southwest University. Level up your nursing skills and knowledge with flexible schedules and speedy terms. Make it happen today. For more information, visit southwestuniversity.edu. Last day to enroll is July 21st. Southwest University. Start today.
Watch Smart Money Thursday on ABC 7 at 4 with Myro Capital Management. You'll learn how to save money the right way and make better decisions to set you and your family up for financial success. Smart Money Thursday on ABC 7 at 4, sponsored by Myro Capital Management.
Buckle up for this delicious deal. Right now, get 4 cheeseburgers, 20-piece chicken McNuggets, and a basket of fries for $16.99. Only at McDonald's.
There's DNA. Then there's heavy-duty DNA. HDNA. It's what every GMC Sierra HD driver is born with, and it's engineered into every aspect of the GMC Sierra HD, with the pulling power to prove it. The new 2024 GMC Sierra HD. Tow hitches of the world. Prepare for glory.
Can't get to a TV? Stay up to date and watch every ABC 7 newscast wherever you are. Complete coverage of breaking news and accurate, reliable storm track weather streaming live on KVIA.com and the free KVIA News app.
Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra. I'm Eric Elkin. I'm joined now by former El Paso Mayor Dee Margro, who of course was mayor at the time of the August 3rd, 2019 mass shooting. We've detailed over the years the fact that you weren't even in El Paso when the initial shots rang out. You had to get on a private jet just to get here. You went several hours, a couple of hours at least, in flying here, just in the dark, trying to get here. Now, nearly 4 years later, finally get to this federal sentencing phase with the witness impact statements. You were there in the courtroom, present for it. What was your biggest takeaway from the last couple of days from this previous week in those witness impact statements?
Well, August 3rd is very personal to me. It's very emotional. This week was almost emotionally debilitating. But listening to all the families and what they were going through and what they were saying, I think my biggest concern was that there was still a lot of hate-filled rhetoric and vitriol that's expected with the tragedies and what they've done. I just don't want it to linger through their entire life. They've got to deal with that, especially some of the young ones who are really, really upset. But as I've said from day one, we're never going to start the full healing, if there ever is going to be a full healing, until after we get all these trials behind us, and including the state trial, which I hope will have a capital murder event at the end where he's subject to a death penalty.
And that is certainly the plan from District Attorney Bill Hicks. He's made that clear, that is what they will be pursuing. You told me that you made a point of, when you were in the courtroom, finding a seat that gave you a view of Patrick Crucius from where you were sitting, being able to see his face. Why?
I just wanted to see his reaction. You know, it's hard to fathom why someone could do what they did. And I said from day one on the day it happened that this individual came from 700 miles away, and I do not believe anyone in our region would have ever done this. And I was trying to figure out, looking at him, what would possess him to do that. Now I understand today, and the statement by his attorney, they talked about his mental health issues, etc. Well, I think on the surface, anybody would say anybody that did this had to be mentally deranged. But by the same token, I also never heard him, the statement today from his attorney, there was never an apology. And that bothers me more than anything. Although when he was questioned by one of the family members and the victim impact statements, he said, "Look at me, are you even sorry?" And he did not. I saw that. But I was just trying to get a sense of what I could, I don't know, what I could feel or sense from looking at him and his emotions. I couldn't see the eyes roll that others talked about. I saw the fidgeting and the moving, and it looked today like it looked to me like he had a sweaty palm because he kept rubbing his jump suit like that. So, you know, maybe that's nerves, whatever, but I couldn't tell.
In the moment that he nodded, when the son of Marjorie Ricard, Dean Ricard, asked him if he was sorry and he nodded, did you feel that you believed him?
Well, I thought it was honest on his part. I mean, that's the best I can say from the vantage point I had, which wasn't that up close. The family members had a better view standing at the podium directly in front of him. And I thought I'd hear more today, but we didn't. We heard the reasons behind his mental health condition and what could cause him to do that. But again, I never heard any expression of him. He knew. I thought the prosecutor had a great statement and basically saying he planned it. He knew it, he planned it, and he fulfilled it.
And the argument that he had 11 hours to think about it too in the drive here.
Absolutely. Well, and he bought the gun, what, 6 weeks previously? I mean, that's, you know, he was planning on that. He bought the type of munition he did, which was probably the most deadly that you could do with the hollow points. And no, he may have been, he had to have been deranged. And yeah, I'll give credit that he probably did have schizophrenic tendencies or whatever it is, but that doesn't change anything. He did it. And I didn't see the remorse that I thought you ought to see.
You had so many moments with the victims' family members over the years, and in the hours after it happened at MacArthur Middle School, the reunification center on August 3rd, 2019. What's the moment that still, I don't know if haunts is the right word, but what's the moment that sticks with you more than anything over the last almost 4 years?
Oh, there were three. The first was the reunification center with MacArthur School, when you had all those family members there waiting to hear confirmation of what they probably deep down already knew. That was tough, but we had such great response by our community. And then the very next day, on that Sunday afternoon, I'm in the hospital room with the 10-week-old baby of Jordan and Andre and Chando. Jordan's parents had already been notified of her official passing. And we're standing there, I'm standing there with the other family members. And Gilbert Anchando, the father of Andre, gets the official call from MacArthur that his son's been identified and he's deceased. Right there with the 10-week-old baby there, that they died sheltering from that killer. But then I immediately left, and I was with Senator Cornyn at the time, and we go over to, at the time, United Blood Services, I think there's a different name today, to give blood.
The line.
And the line was all the way around. And it was, some people were waiting in the August sun.
It was in the kind of heat we're
And
experiencing.
for 11 hours to give blood. And when they finished, everyone would applaud. I said, this is what El Paso and our region is all about. We go from the hospital room of a 10-week-old who had a broken foot because of his parents protecting him, to the outpouring of the spirit of this community to give blood for all the victims. That's what we're about. This is why I take so personal that he came from 700 miles away to attack us as to who we are.
And outside of the lives he took, he changed the lives of so many El Pasoans, and that's what we saw over the last couple of days inside that federal courtroom, with still a state trial pending, as you referenced, and trying to get to some point of closure, and so many people deal with grief differently. What ultimately is your message to all those family members of the victims, or the victims who were fortunate enough to survive and make it out alive of that store that morning, who still suffered a trauma like they've never experienced before in their life that morning?
I pray every morning for all the victims in our community for this tragedy. I also added a year ago the Uvalde tragedy. We, you know, the media used to say, you know, how's this going to affect El Paso? Are you always going to be identified with this tragedy of our region? And I have to keep talking about our region. And I said, it will not define us. It will not define us. And I believe that. I said it'll be a part of our history, but we will relegate it to a footnote. And what I pray for all of the victims and all of those who've been impacted and is that they can start the healing process. They will never forget their loved ones. I have prayer cards from the funerals on my desk at my home, so I don't forget. But that it will not, that hatred will not eat them, will not eat at them, and continually to frame their outlook. And I quoted Joshua 1:9, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was about fear, and don't have fear. Don't have fear anymore. When I did the dedication at the Walmart with the Candela. So this is a community that is totally unique. There is nowhere else in the Western Hemisphere like El Paso, Juarez, and southern New Mexico. And I did my best as mayor and the opportunities I had to explain that to others. And that's just what I hope.
Well, and I remember on that day, as soon as you got here in El Paso, this won't define us. This is not who we are. And that message carried throughout, and I think that helped a lot of people. Mayor Margo, thank you so much for taking the time here on ABC 7 Extra. We'll be right back.
Hamilton in El Paso at the Plaza Theater. Get tickets at elpasolive.com/Hamilton. Click, boom.
With Long John Silver's $10 shrimp shares, you can enjoy grilled shrimp, hand-battered shrimp, or popcorn shrimp. Your choice for just $10, because now is not the time to scrimp on shrimp. Long John Silver's Fish Share.
Suicide is the second leading cause of death in ages 15 to 24. Sometimes medications and therapy are just not enough.
We are now offering TMS for adolescents with treatment-resistant depression. Although non-FDA approved, research and our experience have shown excellent results.
Now more than ever, adolescents are dealing with peer pressure, social media, and pending adulthood.
It is paramount that we provide treatments to help them succeed. Our future depends on it.
El Paso TMS Clinic, healing minds and helping hearts.
Ready, set, sprint to savings at Oscar Lease's Hyundai of El Paso today. Save with 0 down on every new Hyundai in stock, like the award-winning Elantra. Lease today for $219 a month. That's $219 or 0 down. Save with 0.99% interest on Tucson and Santa Fe. Elantra, Tucson, and Santa Fe are in stock and equipped with Apple CarPlay, Hyundai Blue Link, tons more tech and safety, and unbelievable fuel economy, saving you even more at the pump. Sprint to savings today at Oscar Lease's Hyundai of El Paso.
I'm an actor in an ad that was given 12 seconds to remind you that if you're high, just don't drive. Because if you feel different, you drive different. It's illegal to drive high everywhere anyway.
Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra. I'm Eric Elkin. The Walmart shooter, Patrick Crusius, declined an opportunity to speak ahead of his federal sentencing. Instead, his attorney, Joe Spencer, read a statement. He referenced numerous mental health issues with Crusius, saying he felt a presence that is not there since he was a child, and that he suffered mood disturbances, even had hallucinations, and would hear voices. Spencer said Crusius's broken brain changed the lives of El Pasoans. But he said Crusius slipped into psychotic phases, even including having thoughts about hurting people. There was much more there to that the Joe Spencer went into throughout that allocution. However, it paints this picture of mental health issues tied to Patrick Crusius. I'm now joined by James Montoya. You were once the assistant district attorney when and after this happened on August 3rd, 2019. So you were initially on the case, the state case. Right. And you were very clear, Jaime Esparza, your boss at the time, was very clear about pursuing the death penalty in the state case. Of course, that was off the table in the federal case. Right. So I want to bring your perspective in about going after, from a prosecution standpoint, going after this this picture that's been painted of mental health issues as it ties to Patrick Crusius. A lot of the family victims, the family members of the victims, I should say, were very upset that that was brought up as much as it was, and it only further drives a wedge into the pain that they're dealing with. So from a prosecutorial standpoint, how do you combat that argument?
Sure. So I don't want to comment specifically on Mr. Spencer's statement, but I will say that a defendant's mental health is something that comes up frequently in a significant number of murder and capital murder prosecutions. It's something particularly when the death penalty is sought, because here in the state of Texas, to sentence someone to death, a jury has to answer 2 questions. First, is this person a future danger to society? The jury has to answer that yes. There's a second question is, are there any circumstances about the crime or about the person that warrant a sentence of life, including mental health illness or mental health issues? And the jury has to unanimously answer that question no. And so it's something that comes up a lot. I mean, I think the number one point that as a prosecutor would make is that there are millions of Americans with mental health issues that do not commit acts of violence, that do not commit capital murder. And I think another significant portion that we always look at prosecutors is at what point did this mental health, these issues start arising? Is this something that came up after the offense? Is there some evidence of this existing beforehand? What kind of treatment or counseling was sought before the offense? But it is something that comes up, particularly in death penalty cases. I think we saw it come up in the Parkland shooting. That went to trial in the state of Florida. A jury handed down a life sentence, which I know is disappointing for a lot of folks in that case. So without getting into specifically what's going on in this case, that is something that comes up frequently, and sometimes there's a battle of the experts. The state certainly has experts to say whether this is something that actually influenced the commission of the crime.
And that was something that Joe Spencer did go on to bring up as well. He said that there was treatment sought back in the spring ahead of it happening, his parents eventually losing touch, saying his parents had a history of that as well. I do want to be transparent with you, the audience, as well. Obviously, you are running for district attorney. You just announced that recently. But there is a gag order in place still in the state case, so a lot of the players involved cannot speak about this case at this time. And given that you were on the prosecution team at the start of this, that is the reason why we're having Mr. Montoya's expertise on this. So I do want to be transparent about that. How, you mentioned what the jury has to answer unanimously, yes and no. How difficult, from a prosecution standpoint, is it to get that unanimous answer to not just one question, but two questions?
Right. It's hard. I mean, this community, I will tell you, just on informal polling that I've talked to friends and family here, you know, this community is conservative in some ways, but it's progressive in others. And so my personal experience, I think people here do support the death penalty. I think some people don't. Same thing in this particular case. I will tell you that I don't think that the death penalty is a foregone conclusion in this case. I think that the trial jury is going to have, it's obviously going to be very contested. You know, I don't want to comment again specifically on the whatever mitigating evidence that the defense team, including Mr. Spencer, presented to the Attorney General, to the Department of Justice, was clearly, you know, they thought of it seriously enough that they decided that they would not seek the death penalty. So, you know, clearly they're, I think the jury in this case is I don't want to say, I think they're going to have a hard time. This is going to be a trial, this is going to be a triable issue.
And that's something that I think people just watching from the outside, maybe with not as much legal expertise, just putting two and two together, one of the things they look at is, you even referenced it a moment ago, a lot of people in this country and in this world suffer from mental health illness and mental health challenges, but the majority do not commit these types of acts of violence. And when you factor in the fact that he drove 11 plus hours through the night from far away to come specifically to this location, he wrote the manifesto out the way he did. He even scouted the Walmart, the Cielo Vista Walmart, prior to going in the second time. How do you argue mental health and maybe schizophrenia when it's that long? And I know maybe I'm not asking, you know, for mental health expertise, but just in terms of a prosecution standpoint, there's a lot there that went into committing the act of violence that was committed that day.
Sure. I mean, I will say as a prosecutor generally, the more premeditation, the more planning that you have involved in any given case, I think that strengthens your argument for aggravation, right? That this person planned this out, premeditated this particular outcome, and I think that certainly cuts against any argument that, you know, any mitigating argument that he didn't know what he was doing or was unaware of the consequences of his actions.
The other thing you touched on, what about the fact that this community, you mentioned, and it's clear, it's out there, and you don't even have a unanimous answer amongst the family members of the victims as to whether or not they want the death penalty, because some people are just morally opposed to the death penalty. Joe Spencer being one of them. That's one of the things he said back in October 2019 after the arraignment was, I'm morally opposed to the death penalty, and he will never see the light of day again. Let's make that clear. And he's not denying that he did it at this point, especially after pleading guilty in the federal case. So it happened. When you're going through jury selection, though, all it takes, I would imagine, is one person on that jury to be morally opposed, to be the lone naysayer, or I should say the lone no when you need yes, or yes when you need no. So how do you navigate that when you're not really in control of that?
Right. Well, so you're exactly right. It only takes one juror to vote the other way. If the jury hangs, you know, if they're not able to come to a unanimous decision, it's a life sentence. And so, in my opinion, the most critical portion of trial in any death penalty case is the jury selection, is interviewing the jurors, ferreting out their views, trying to get them to open up and be genuine and truthful about their views on the death penalty, because that, again, in my opinion, that is the most critical phase of a capital murder prosecution where the death penalty is sought. And you know, you mentioned earlier, you know, some people are morally opposed to the death penalty. Some people think life in prison is the more harsh sentence. I mean, some people think having to sit in supermax alone in a cell for the rest of your life is the more harsh sentence. And you know,
as opposed to what some people call an easy out.
Right. Right.
All right, Mr. Montoya, thank you so much for the time and the extra perspective tonight on ABC 7 Extra.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
This past week made so many in our community relive trauma. ABC 7 has also been covering the mental health impact of the sentencing phase. If you head to our website, kvi.com, you can click on the tab that is labeled Be Mindful. That is at the top of the page that is located right here. That will bring you to our Be Mindful homepage, which has all of our mental health support coverage, but including our coverage during the sentencing phase. Following the sentencing, mental health responders encourage all El Pasoans to find support, and mental health support animals offer support in El Paso courtrooms. Just two of the most recent stories tied to the sentencing phase. It also has available resources to you if you feel you need to reach out for additional help, whether it's tied to the August 3rd shooting or anything else. That all located for you on KVI.com. Just click on the Be Mindful tab. Thank you for joining us on this edition of ABC 7 Extra. I'm Eric Elkin. Have a great night.
Thank you for watching ABC 7 News.